Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer. Take a trip into the macabre world of goth modeling in the new millennium in this spooktacular Spinsterella story. Pick up your copy of Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. A while back, I did a video talking about how many major corporations use prison labor to produce their products. And I wanted to go a bit more in depth on this entire subject to give people a better understanding of how many laborers are in prison are being exploited. Now, a while back, Mr. Chris from Chris and Company sent me a U.S. News and World Report article detailing how many major corporations use prison labor to produce many of the consumer products that we buy on the shelves of retailers and much of the fast food we get at many restaurants. And many of these corporations, basically what they're doing when they do this is go out here and use this prison labor and use it as a way to circumvent going out here and hiring many Americans for jobs, one. And two, they also go out here and look to go out and use this prison labor as a way to basically cut costs as related to maximizing their profits. Now, this whole process in and of itself is extremely unethical when you really think about it, how many of these corporations that make billions of dollars a year go out of their way to go out here and use prison labor as related to going out here and using them to do work that they could go out here and hire everyday Americans to go out here and do. Now, what these companies are doing is basically taking advantage of many laws in this country as related to the rights of an inmate, because once a person does get arrested, what happens to that person is that person winds up losing their rights and they wind up becoming property of the state. And as they become property of the state, what happens is that these many of these inmates are basically used the same way slaves were used to go out here to do labor to build this country up. And as they are used to go out here and be this slave labor in some ways, what happens is they basically, what these companies do is profit by exploiting these men and women and having them do all sorts of work at their expense, and then wind up again profiting on that labor by not giving these people the wages that they were supposed to receive. Now, what many people don't know about inmates, in addition to them winding up losing their rights as related to being property of the state, is that many inmates who are in the penitentiary, basically many of these individuals, again, what they do is, again, as they're taking away their rights and again using them as prison labor, is basically showing how hypocritical many are as related to the standards that they're setting for these inmates. Now, according to our U.S. Constitution, again, we're supposed to be against cruel and unusual punishment, but using prison labor to go out here and work for corporations is basically the same thing as cruel and unusual punishment. And it is also, as I see it, not really an effective way to say that you're going to rehabilitate an individual, because here we have these corporations which basically show how little character that they have by saying, hey, prison is supposed to be a place where you're supposed to rehabilitate someone to return to society. But those who are looking to go out here and exploit these individuals don't see how hypocritical they are. They really don't see how hypocritical they are by saying, hey, we want to take this prison labor and go out here and use it to work at our corporations, make money off these people's labor. They don't see how hypocritical that is to go out here and take a person, have them be locked up in this prison, and as they're locked up in this prison, basically have them working for anywhere from nothing to 10 cents to $1 an hour. And basically, as they're working in that on these and as related to this labor, whether it be again picking crops for these corporations or sewing up items that are basically turned into merchandise to be sold, or building things that is related to things like building up infrastructure as related to the projects as related to the highways and the roads, or even going out here and fighting fires. This is basically exploitation of American labor, and it's all seen as perfectly legal by many of those in government, and many of those in government don't really even see how unethical it is to go out here and use prison labor to go out here and have them doing work. Don't see how it's just unethical to have prison laborers doing work and then going out here and then taking whatever they worked on and then going out here and profiting at that all and then basically profiting at these peoples as related to their labor is just a completely egregious thing to do, but it's perfectly fine here in the United States of America because many Americans don't know how many of these inmates are being exploited and being taken advantage of by those in government and how egregious these actions truly are. Now, many people in America really don't care because they believe that, oh, this is just something that's happening just to inmates, but what they don't see is how unethical those are as related to getting that prison labor. Now, in many of these states, as related to that prison labor, what they do is go out here and arrest innocent black men and black women and have them in these jails and these prisons, have them in these jails and prisons without ever giving them any sort of due process under the law. And many of those people, as they are inside of these jails or these prisons, again, are working as laborers inside of this whole system. Again, working anywhere from getting nothing at all to 10 cents to $1 an hour and never getting any sort of due process as related to their cases. They're just inside of these prisons working as laborers inside of these prisons or these jails in some cases, and basically working for next to nothing and working for next to nothing at all, as many of these major corporations, again, these are corporations that make anywhere from millions to billions of dollars. In many cases, they make billions of dollars, and all of that money basically being made on the labor of many of these inmates. And it's just, again, one of those egregious things that people just don't really think about as related to things. They're not really thinking about it because as they're out here being consumers, all they're thinking about is consuming products, not understanding that many of those products that are being made by inmates and being made by inmates who get no sort of compensation whatsoever. And as they get no compensation whatsoever, I'll repeat it once more. Again, it shows the hypocrisy of the U.S. government, shows the hypocrisy of the U.S. government as related to, one, our U.S. Constitution, because our U.S. Constitution, again, talks about due process under the law, and many of these black people don't get due process under the law as related to the criminal charges that they're basically brought into these jails and prisons for and having them work this labor. And they're also not getting any sort of just punishment, because this basically, as I see it, violates the U.S. Constitution as related to cruel and unusual punishment, because it's very cruel to have somebody, again, being arrested and locked up on trumped up charges, and that's very cruel in and of itself to willfully and intentionally use that person to exploit their labor. And in some cases, this is similar to, again, modern day slavery as I see it, to, again, go out here and arrest a black person on these kind of trumped up charges, then have them working as labor for many of these corporations, and not look to compensate these individuals by taking advantage of the whole thing as related to state property, again, basically constituting cruel and unusual punishment, and also shows the hypocrisy of those in government who sit there and talk about how prison and jails are supposed to be about them being correctional facilities meant to correct behavior, but shows how hypocritical they are because they're not looking to correct any behavior. No, they're looking to be just as unethical as they say the alleged inmate is, who is basically supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. But as this person is innocent until proven guilty, again, is waiting for trial, they're basically being punished, and they're being punished by a criminal justice system that basically allows big business to go out here and to exploit these individuals who are predominantly mostly black men and black women and take advantage of them to get their labor for free, take advantage of them to get their labor for free and profit from their labor. Again, these people go out here and have these people working in fields for next to no money or 10 cents an hour, when if they had to go to one of these illegal migrants, they would be paying much more money. And if they had to go to an American citizen, they would be paying even more money for that type of labor. And that's where these types of crimes, again, are egregious. And this is the type of crime that the Bible talks about when Jesus talks about and about people, again, holding back people's wages. This is what this is all about, really. Again, this is the type of thing that was stated in the Bible as related to holding back people's wages and things, as I would also go on as related to the Proverbs and the Psalms, talking about the diverse weights and diverse measures, again, used to basically take advantage of people. And this is the type of greedy mindset that these corporations have, having no regard for human beings. Again, the prison is supposed to be a place of correction, correcting behavior so that a person can return to society. But what type of society are people coming back to when corporations go out here and exploit inmates? Critical question I have to ask: what type of society are inmates going back to if they are being exploited inside of these prisons? And again, you have major corporations sitting there making money at their expense. You've got major corporations sitting up there, again, people with billions of dollars, again, billions of dollars being made on the work of an inmate, billions of dollars being made on the work of people who are in this prison. A lot of those people basically being put into these prisons unjustly because many of these corporations want to go out here and maximize their profits. And this whole behavior is no different than anything that I have read regarding the slave master and the slave plantation. I mean, absolutely no different than what is presented by the slave master in the slave plantation and the prisons in and of themselves that are predominantly filled with black men and black women, again, basically being used like a modern day slave plantation by many corporations who go out here and make most of these products that people consume every day. That's what's really disturbing about this whole situation. Disturbing because when I look at this behavior, again, this is the type of behavior that I again believe goes against God and his standards as related to things. Because yes, God is all about justice and all about punishing justice fairly. And it's not about going out here and torturing and exploiting people like this. No, this is just, again, it's just inhumane to go out here and treat people like this. But many people feel it's okay to dehumanize black people especially if they're black people, because most people believe that most inmates are black people, so it's okay to treat people like this. But it's not right to treat people like this at all. No, the Bible states that we are supposed to do unto others as we would have them do unto us. And part of that is treating a person with respect, whether they are an inmate or not, whether or not this person has done a great wrong as related to the crimes that they've done. They still have rights as a human being. And no corporation should have a right to go out here and just go out here and profit from somebody's labor and basically go out here and be selling products with that people who worked in prison went out here and did without paying those people fairly. I mean, what's really sad about this is that people in other countries, people who are illegal aliens or immigrants, basically, they go out here, they are getting paid more. People in factories in foreign countries are paid more. But when it comes down to an inmate here in America, an American citizen, they basically are not paid fairly at all as related to their wages. Moreover, they are put in the most inhumane working conditions, and that also further constitutes the cruel and unusual punishment done to foundational black American inmates inside of the prison system, again, showing the hypocrisy of America as related to its whole Constitution and the constitutional rights of these men that are violated, and the violation of the laws of God, because according to the laws of God, again, we're supposed to love the Lord with our heart, soul, and spirit, and love our neighbors as ourselves. And again, if we love the Lord, we're going to do right by people, even if they have done wrong. Again, we want to show that example of Christ to people. We want to show that example of Christ as related to how we treat people, even if those people have gone out here and again allegedly committed crimes. And in some cases, when it comes down to foundational black Americans, no crime was ever committed. A lot of times you have black men and black women who are basically, again, like I saw in the 80s during the war on drugs, people just riding in a car or just walking down the block talking to a dude, and then all of a sudden they come and pick them up, and then after they pick them up, they basically, again, will hold this person for years and never even in some cases take their case to trial. And sometimes when they do take their case to trial, basically what happens is that person ends up getting railroaded. I mean, this is a type of thing that I don't think God is pleased with as related to the way man is treating man here in this country. No, it's not something that I believe it would see to be right about the way men are treating each other. Again, just dehumanizing people, then exploiting them and taking their wages for their labor. And again, not looking to rehabilitate this person, but also looking to go out here and exploit this person. I mean, this is the type of thing that I believe that God would not be pleased with as related to this type of behavior. I mean, this type of behavior in and of itself shows how those who are in power are just as evil as they allege these inmates to be. They are just as reprehensible and just as egregious as the inmates that they imprison. I mean, many of these people in corporate America are just as unethical and just as reprehensible. And I wonder how many of those people would feel if someone went out here and exploited them in the same way, had them working in hot fields or working in hot factories or working on roads or fighting forest fires for $1 million mansions, and having them work for nothing or anywhere from 10 cents to $1 an hour. That's the critical question I gotta ask all these billionaires and CEOs. I mean, how would you feel if you had to go out here and work for having most of your wages taken and had to work in some of the most horrific working conditions, more horrific working conditions than those Chinese factories where you have people working on Air Jordan sneakers that cost $3 to make, more horrific conditions than the fields that the migrants wind up in, and more horrific conditions than the average everyday American. I have to wonder if those CEOs, if they were made to be in those conditions, how would they feel? Because the way they're treating these people is not the way God wants us to treat each other. Again, He wants us to love our neighbors as ourselves, and He also wants us to go out here and show that example of Christ to others so that we can go out here and bear fruit as related to the Spirit. I mean, that's what He wants us to do, is go out here and bear that fruit as related to our example, because our example is a reflection on Him. And that's sadly what I see with many of these corporate types who say that they are Christians and go to church. They basically sit there and I believe bring Christ to an open shame with their reckless and egregious behaviors and their love more of money than people. That's a big problem I'm seeing with many of those in corporate America. They have more love for money than people, and they have such lust and greed for money that they basically will treat any people like less than nothing, and again treat people worse than you would any human being. I mean, the way these inmates are being treated is worse than you would treat, I would believe, to be the only people worse who would suffer worse than this are slaves during slavery. And the way that these people are being done, I believe, again, will lead to many of these corporations reaping what they sow, later than what they sow, greater than what they sow, because God is not mocked, and as a man sows, he shall reap. And the evil that's being done here is something that I believe will be dealt with by the Almighty God as related to how these men and women are being treated inside of these facilities. I mean, the way these men and women are being being exploited and taken advantage of by these multi-billion-dollar corporations, by people who again live lavish lifestyles at the expense of many of these predominantly black inmates, many of these black inmates who definitely, I believe, would be in deserving of reparations. Now, many people don't want to, again, give reparations to foundational black Americans, but when I look at the way many of these inmates are treated, this is a clear case for reparations, because this is a textbook example of what I call the current and ongoing racism and discrimination that basically leads to the oppression of foundational black Americans, and a way to recompense those who had basically been exploited, and again had their wages taken back by many of those inside of these corporations as related to, again, taking them for their labor. That's what reparations would do, because you took this person and, again, in some cases, took them or had them arrested on trumped up charges, then had them where they couldn't get due process under the law in a reasonable time, because it's supposed to be 90 to 180 days, and some of these people wind up sitting in jail for years or prison for years, and in that time they're working for these corporations, working for less than minimum wage, and working there, and again working on consumer products that people basically made a whole bunch of money on, made more than the Chinese laborer inside of the factory, made more than the illegal migrant made as related to, again, working in fields and other jobs. And this black laborer, in most cases, is the one who has had their wages stolen. Again, this is something that I believe, again, God would not be pleased with, and even possibly would consider to be an abomination in his eyes. Again, these are crimes that, again, are reprehensible, and they really show how America, as it talks about democracy, is nothing more than a hypocrisy, just like the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Many of these corporate types, again, no different than the Pharisees and the Sadducees, more interested in going out here and living a lifestyle, and living a lifestyle without regard for people. And that really in and of itself just shows how bad things are as related to America, and how far we have fallen as related to values, and how many of us are not looking to follow and serve Christ and look to go out here and look to please our Lord. No, many people basically thinking more about looking to gain satisfaction from self, and caught up in their own greed, not seeing how they are basically going out here participating in sins that God will punish. And again, will punish because this is just pure greed to go out here and exploit people like this. These are human beings. And again, if this person was in the same place as another person, they wouldn't want to be treated like this. I know this because I oftentimes have a family member who talks about, you should volunteer to get experience. But no, that's also, again, taking a person's wages. Again, you're getting their labor for free. And again, nobody should be having a place where their labor is taken for free. No, a person, again, should, if you want a person to be rehabilitated and get right, one of the things to incentivize that is to pay that person what they're supposed to get. Pay that person what they're supposed to get so that they can go out here and be able to start their life once more, and have that incentive to go out here and live a more abundant life the way Christ wants to live. Again, this is about us doing right as related to our service to God, and that's the sad part with our country. It's no longer interested in serving God because we're not treating humans like human beings, and we think, okay, it's okay to mistreat especially black people and treat them like less than. But God does not see a black person as less than. He sees them as one of his children that he loves, and he doesn't want to see people exploited like this. He doesn't want to see people exploited like this inside of these prisons. doesn't want to see them having their labor taken advantage of and having their wages held back by corporations that profit at the expense of these people, as related to, again, this is not rehabilitation, this is cruel and unusual punishment, and it's cruel and unusual punishment that needs to stop, and people really need to start to take a look at these things, because, again, much of the work that they do is go out here and have the inmates do the work, but don't compensate those inmates for that labor, and that's a process that, again, is unjust in the eyes of God as I see it, and just unjust to do, because it goes against his word, because what you're doing is holding back this person's wages and profiting at their expense overall. Now, this was a video requested by a viewer, and if you want to request a video, you can drop a donation for a minimum of $15 to the PayPal or the Cash App by clicking the link in the description box, and if I know something about that subject, I will make that video for you. And if you want to pick up some of my books on the SJS Direct imprint, you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online booksellers like Draft Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl. The aspiring angel takes on a wicked teenage witch in this action-packed, all-new Esteemed series adventure. Pick up your copy of Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, A Thorn in My Side. The man who rules the world takes on an agent from the CIA from the Black Boule in this all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.